Hello. Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome here. Welcome to Ashoka Changemaker Summit 2022. Hello to the people here in front of me. And a warm welcome also to the people who are watching us online. As you have seen in the agenda, and maybe here, a small title here, opening the doors of the controlled room, youth and decision-making processes. My name is Luca Solesin. I'm the responsible for the youth leadership program in Italy. And together with me, there will be 4 amazing speakers. And the panel will be moderated by myself and Stephanie. Please welcome her.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Luca, for the warm welcome. And the word is going to be back to you in a second. I'm Stephanie. I'm a colleague of Luca, and I'm responsible for the youth agenda in Austria, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein. And I have the privilege to co-host with Luca. Back to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And please welcome our speakers of today. Welcome Taoufik, Tatjana, Adriano, and Catarina. Well, first of all, thank you very much for being here. We are not that many, so please think of this session as a dialogue among peers. Feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, comments, and do whatever you want. We heard a lot about youth and leadership, youth in the position of leadership, youth and decision-making. And it's now difficult to say we don't want to have youth in decision-making position. We heard it this morning. Catarina was already mentioning it very well. You know, the importance of listening to youth, but is it enough? This is one question that we might even ask you, but we are not going to ask you that. The thing is that not that many times we dig into the real reason why, nor what are the real challenges that we have once we have young people in the controlled room. So it's nice to say, let's have youth leading change, but is it easy? What happened? What we are learning from having young people in the leadership position? What we can do, what we can learn from the failures and challenges and the solutions we have done in order to promote youth leadership in different countries at the national and global level. So this is the panel, and I'm going to ask you a very first question. So we decided to have you here. Why? Why do you think we invited you? What you are doing? We can start here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Luca, for inviting me. So when it comes to the why, I would say humbly that probably with my colleagues at Lead Belgium, our organization, we have some stories to share about youth empowerment, and we think it's good for us and to share with the audience. I will briefly present myself. My name is Taoufik Amzile. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm chairing an organization that is representing entrepreneurs from diversity roots. So maybe you know in Brussels, half of the entrepreneurs are from a background from diversity, from ethnic diversity. So it's a very big group here in Brussels. And our idea actually was that besides the social mobility of our entrepreneurs, we wanted also to offer them ways to give back to society, and then we focused more specifically on the youth empowerment. So that's why we started in 2009 to deliver a very big set of programs to empower us from training, but also from organization of events, role modeling, one-to-one mentoring, but also, because we are talking about the control room, making sure that they take the relay, because they will be actually the next generation to take the control of our society. So at certain moments, we had to reflect on this, and I will be glad to share with you about that.
Thank you very much, Luca. And I think one of the main reasons even to be here for me, it's very personal. I just love to learn. And I think I've always learned so much from Ashoka Fellows and from those kind of events. The reason to be here on the podium is because I'm representing here a foundation from Liechtenstein, and we are focusing very much on education, fighting, basically projects which are fighting against inequity, and to really that all the young people can have the same chances in their future life and fulfill their potentials. And so we have various projects, and one new one is one project with Ashoka, which is the Gen Z project, the Generation Changemaker, which Stephanie, I guess you were wondering before why Liechtenstein. Austria, Switzerland and Liechtenstein to be named, as the foundation is from Liechtenstein. And so I'm very excited about that. They're really to empower the youth and to give them a voice, because I deeply believe that the young ones, they need to have a voice, they have to be heard and should be part of the decision-making process up to very high level. Yeah.
Hello, again. I think I'll take this home, because now it's like, I feel very comfortable. I'm here because I think we need young people in the panels of Ashoka if you want to have a message of young people in decision-making and in charge. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. I think also from my experience with Ashoka has been also that I was supporting Ashoka in Belgium a couple of years ago during the pandemic on youth projects and on social innovation in schools, and also on a new project on youth change making. And then, so I guess, there's a very nice connections there, and it's such a pleasure to be here and to finally meet in person. And then I was for many, well, I am still, for many years, as I said this morning, in the European Youth Parliament, which is, it is a non-partisan and a peer-to-peer organization. It sounds very political, very affiliated to the EU institutions, but it is actually a very by youth, for youth, informal education projects. And I think there the aim is mostly pedagogical, educational, giving young people the tools to make up their minds about different issues, EU level, but also local, national, global, and then learn to speak up, learn to voice their opinions, and enter into intercultural dialogue from a position of curiosity and not, I want my point to win. And building friendships that are European, worldwide, and understanding each other. And then many of these young people then at some points get invited or start their own careers a bit later and get into positions of being in charge at different levels. So I think I'm going to share a bit of that experience.
Cheers. Okay, cheers, cheers. Hi everybody, thank you very much Luca, thank you very much for the invitation. And well, what can I say? I'm an Italian change maker. My name is Adriano, Bertone. I come from Italy, really far from here. It was a little bit tricky, but it's okay. I am an Italian change maker as well as a European Youth Ambassador for my country, Italy. And I'm currently a bachelor student of political science and international relations with a deep interest in the youth policies. Youth policy is one of the main topics I'm studying right now, and I really believe the future really come from this, from the able we have to make youth policy is really, really efficient and really, really works. And in fact of this, I founded 2 or 3 years ago my personal social enterprise, which is called T-Generation. And T-Generation is a social enterprise that basically try to bridge the gap between young people and the local administration, making the engagement for those young people, especially in the small towns. And in Italy, there are a lot of small towns where there is a lot of people that is not enough engaged in the political process. And T-Generation is headquartered in a small region that is Umbria, a region almost always forgotten by everybody, such as youth policies, unfortunately, in my country. And I say unfortunately because I really believe that there is no future for a country who doesn't invest in who will live this future. And so by the youth policy, everything passes. And if you doesn't invest in youth policy, you have no future, as a country, I mean. And youth policy really works if you are able to, first of all, engage with touch by those policies. And so young people, for example. And so the idea we basically have is to try to redefine a new model of youth policies. A model that wasn't and that is not even more about a bottom-up approach or top-down as always is, but something different, like a third way. We call it intergenerational method. And which intergenerational method we refer to a system based on 2 level action. One, horizontal, which is the peer-to-peer, the ability for the young guys to engage other young guys, as only us can do. And the other level is a vertical level, where you have to take these guys and make them in dialogue with the institutions. And on the basis of this theoretical model, we basically try to figure out some projects to engage people. One of the most successful projects we had has been the Task Force for Youth Policies. That is basically a project where we go around Italy in small towns, taking care of young leader of tomorrow, young people, and giving them the possibility, the chance to be in dialogue with the local administrations, expressing themselves. And that's because what we really think, and I'm going to finish, is that today a new generational sensitivity needs new space for be expressed. And that's what we are trying to do.
Thank you so much. Okay, now. So we're having the clap control, once me, once Luca. So thank you for shining light on why you're here. I'm going to take a different angle on the question now, because we're really interested in understanding your journeys. And when you're sharing, I would ask you also to put the mic close to your mouth. You can put, for example, like this. This is why Marie does it. It helps, because then they can really hear you. It looks a little weird, but it's great for the audio. Because we want to hear also your voice. But what is the question? The question is, what made you get engaged in youth leadership? And on the one hand, opening doors. On the other hand, stepping through it. And then, as you said, feeling comfortable when you stepped through it. Then on the whatever couch or table you will meet and see there. So please give us an insight in, was there an aha moment, and what was the action you've taken? Because that's the exciting thing. What was the action? We heard a little bit, but share a little bit, please, the aha moment you had. And we're gonna start with you.
Okay, interesting question. I mean, really interesting. Yes, I know, you're so good. Really interesting question, because every time we think about what we would do, we never ask ourselves how and from where. In general, I think that the need to take concrete action starts from some form of suffering. In a good sense, I mean. It's when you feel really disappointed, is when you feel, really, really let down, that you really take action and move to change the situation. And that's what happened to me, for example. I was disappointed on different levels, and I just tried to change the situation. I was disappointed on a local level. I come from a really small town where I grew up seeing a lot of friends of mine always didn't hurt, with high potential, with high skills, unable to express their ideas just because institution didn't listen to them. And I always felt disappointed about this. And I am also disappointed and such tricky in another way, on a general and a personal level. On a general level, because I really think that we are kind of special generation. We are born during some big historical process, like big transition, such as the economic transition, digital transition, environmental transition. And that makes us really with a different sensitivity, really far from the one of our parents. And that's maybe sometimes, also on a personal level, make us quite uncomfortable with our parents or the institutions. Let me give some example. I always remember the argument I had with my dad every time for a lot of stupid things, use of digital tools, how much he was slow in everything he did, or the fact that he always read really boring books and other things like that. And what I saw was that wasn't true, that all he does is wrong. And not even that all I do is wrong. There is something in the middle, there is something in the capacity of make a synthesis between those two words that nowadays is absolutely crucial. And it's here where come from my desire to bring this intergenerational gap and make it even closer than it is. And to do this, I understand that I had to do something in order to help my friends, help me as a person, but my community first of all. Because there is no future for anyone if the community he have around isn't enough.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you, Adriano, for sharing your story. It's also very interesting to hear it. Yes, the mic. Maybe after some years or panels of experience, it will get easier. No, I was thinking, no, my aha moment that I tend to say, so there's two. There's one that is a bit younger that I didn't realize up until I started thinking about what is the aha moment. And the other one is entering as a young pupil with my school to the European Youth Parliament's little conference in Brussels, where I got to meet people from other schools in Belgium and other countries. And the trigger was the fun. So it was not the suffering. It was because it was so cool, so exciting. I was like, oh, okay, I can get to debate about these topics and meet these people. And I was like, okay, I might stay a bit more. And then I get to travel around Europe. And that also makes me think a lot about the privilege that it means to start being active because you're enjoying the journey and not because you feel that if you don't do it, no one is going to let you do it. So that is also, an interesting thought and reflection. And I think it's maybe for a follow-up question or something. But a bit younger than that was when a few months or a couple of years after moving to Belgium, because I'm Portuguese, but I moved here when I was 12. And we got, with my mom and my brother, we went to a volunteering day in our neighborhood to a local women's shelter. And we just spent the day, I don't know, painting nails and chatting over coffee and tea. And for me, it was a very, and I'm sharing this story, and there's a few people in the room that have heard it like 2 weeks ago. But it was a beautiful moment of realizing that, no, I don't need to travel to very far away into very poor countries to help kids that, I don't know, are orphans or whatever I imagined earlier that it meant to be a change maker and to help or whatever. So that was the realization that no, it starts next door. Well, it starts at home, but then it starts with my friends, it starts in my neighborhood, in my school. And it's not about helping, because that was also the realization that I was not there helping. I was having tea and painting my nails and just sharing a moment that was so casual that it was very meaningful. Because I think now when I think about it, it's really, we need, communities of care, communities of support, and moments of fun and joy, and any revolution or any transition, I think, really requires to be joyful, because otherwise we are all just sad and and anxious. And I'm not going to repeat myself, but yeah, I think that is a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, the wow moment is maybe a little bit of a journey. As I had the chance to grow up in a very privileged surrounding, a very privileged country, Liechtenstein, extremely rich, privileged family, all that, and but with a mother who was a refugee in the Second World War when she was tiny. So basically, it was always the education there to say, okay, there are others as well, and we have to take care of them, and it's our social responsibility. Then I moved to Madrid to study, and I was working there once a week in the HIV house from Mother Teresa, and just to visit and to cook there. But I completely agree, it was fun. And people would say, oh, wow, that must be depressing. No, it was like so nice giving back something. And they gave me at least so much more than I could give them. And I think that journey just went on with this being privileged to really have this social responsibility. And then my first contact was again then with having many kids and moving around and so on. I got engaged and again in Teach for All. I met Wendy Kopp in Vienna, and as I learned then later on that she was also a Ashoka fellow, so there it closes a little bit the story. And since then I tried to be engaged in all kind of different projects. So so it's a journey more than the wow, which you maybe wanted to have.
But the thing is, in life, it's often about the journey, not the destination. Like, there are a lot of smart sayings that come from somewhere, but was it a journey for you, or was it a moment?
Actually, for me, there is no aha moment, because it all starts with the constatation that we are living in a society that has structural problems. From my course of life, I'm from a migrant background, from a lower middle class family. So I know, and my friends, my colleagues, my members, we all know what is the cost of mobility through the society. And because we know how hard it can be, how tough it can be, you start working your resilience from very soon. So resilience is just like something we have experienced with COVID. It's something we experience from the very start of education. And because we know it's hard for us, we want to avoid this for the next generation. So, and this is how it started. It's how we can make some leverage on our own experience to avoid certain hurdles or to assist the next generation to be sure that they can find their way. So we don't tell them, just do like us, because everyone has his own course of life experience, but we passed through several difficulties that you can learn and benefit from our own experience. We know in Brussels, probably in Europe, there is lack of equal opportunities. There is lack of mobility. You have ethnostratification of our society. And we always talk about living together, but actually we are mostly living like silos. people, communities living side by side, sometimes meeting here and there in certain circumstances, but it's like the society is already built with a certain hierarchy. And what we want to do is to break the hierarchy and make sure that the young generation, especially the young generation coming from migrant backgrounds, even this is the second or the third or even the fourth generation, you still see the same patterns, okay, of discrimination. So our objective is to make sure that they find their way, they find themselves as being a talented person and recognized as such. Why? Because we were talking about how to give the control room, to give the comments. You know, it really starts with the mindset. My father used to say, and this is really something I tell to the young generation, is when you see yourself as a minority, you will always have ambitions of a minority. So see yourself as someone big, part of the social fabric, and find your way with this mindset. Don't be just asking for your place, because if you are a talent, your country should recognize you as a talented person. And then it comes the how we do that. We can give great power with great responsibility, but we want also to give great purpose. It's just not like social mobility for yourself, your family, a good house, everything that you want, good standard of living. No. If you don't have a purpose, you're talented, it's just waste. So this is our journey with the youngster generation, is when you give control to the young generation, you also give a purpose. You say, it's not about you, it's about you, the society, your family, the world. Everything you are going to do will impact all of this. So the purpose is the most important thing, and it is actually driving our philosophy. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, I take a small breath, big breath, because that was a lot of content. Thanks for your vulnerability and also sharing your really personal stories. And I love the diversity, but Luca has even another question.
I mean, I have a question, but there are so many things that I would like to say. Since I'm a moderator, I can take the power of taking my time, sharing a little bit. I mean, two things. The first one, I hear a lot of echoes of what we shared this morning, you know? This morning we heard about the need for recoding of the world around us. And listening to your words, I just put here some of the noun, let's say, that were shared. Care, curiosity, gratitude, responsibility, breaking hierarchy. No? In some way, this is the language that we are trying to speak when we work towards youth leadership. And the second thing is, let's look at the geography that we built in this panel, from small towns, from Brazil and decision-making positions with privileged community, with different backgrounds. So it's really a nice geography of the world that we built in these two rounds of questions. Again, be bigger. This is something that we heard this morning. And this morning we also talk about distributed agency. And distributed agency, as you know, working on youth leadership, and as we know in Ashoka, working on distributed leadership and distributed agency, it's very difficult. It's so difficult. Don't trust who says it's easy. I mean, it's not. So letting go, giving power, hosting space, it's hard. So my question to you, a last round of question, and we are not following this, but I'm gonna ask you directly, what were the challenges that you found? And I'm asking you also here in the audience, what are the challenges that you are facing in promoting youth leadership and distributed agency? How you find authenticity, how you deal with privilege, how you deal with letting go. Who wants to start answering? Stephanie, you want to add something?
I think maybe we can also put add a layer of thinking to it, and maybe the solution
And
as
solution,
well.
of course.
I think it would be great, looking at the challenge, but at the same time being like, okay, so where did that lead me, and what was the solution that came out of that? But let's start with the challenge, and if you want to share the solution already.
Kata?
I love how comfortable you feel. Can we give her a big round of applause, because she belongs here, doesn't she? Yeah, I think we want. You can take. I'm not sure if you can take it home, but you can.
But that is funny. No, I don't think I belong here. I've often wondered where I belong. I think, Luca, we've had multiple Skypes over the last couple of years where I was either in Brussels in my room during COVID or in Brazil with my family, and then surfing in Portugal, and then back to Brussels while studying in Sweden. So it was a bit of a mobility route there. But a bit more deeply than just the geographical locations, I think belonging is a question of, feeling comfortable, feeling that you can be yourself authentically, and that you're going to be welcomed and accepted. Just you, and not with titles or degrees or whatever background you have at home. And I think, maybe I can link that to a challenge and a personal challenge of when we ask young people, and to be honest, I have no intent to represent the youth. So when I was asked, or I felt that I could be leading somehow to some extent, at first, so my first maybe big experience of responsibility and leadership was presiding the national committee of the EYP here in Belgium 4 years ago. And I was really young. And then I put a lot of pressure on myself to be big, to be responsible and come out as knowledgeable and whatever, something. A lot of words that were there. And that did not work out very well. And no, for real, a lot of pressure, a lot of doubts, a lot of feeling alone, feeling that I was not enough, and that I had no clue whatsoever what I was doing. And that was and I couldn't solve it then. So I was very unhappy with doing what I supposedly joined because it was fun. So it stopped being fun. So then after that, I took a step back. And now, for example, I came from 3 months of surfing in Portugal. So that was fun. But it's the question of taking care of ourselves and of each other, of our mental health, our physical health, of our emotional and social health or identities, right? Having friends and people that we can relate to and people that we can feel supported by. I think that is a big challenge, because you can, or at least I felt very alone. And that was not I think I was making a huge giant out of it. It was not, it was responsibility for how young I was, but it was also not, I was not presiding the world, but I thought I was, and everything felt on my shoulders, in my head. So I think for me, it's a personal challenge, but then it's also how we look at young people that we put in charge. How much responsibility can you give? And I'm all for empowerment and taking and giving a seat at the table to young people, but also with responsibility from the adults or the communities that then need to follow up with the care and the supports, and saying no, it's okay if it's too much, it's okay if you fail and you try and you fail again. So yeah, I think I'll. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next?
You? Me? I good? Okay. No, it's good to hear this because I didn't feel alone in this war, and I think one of the greatest things of Ashoka, I told you before, Luca, is the fact that you really don't feel alone in what you do. For example, and don't feel alone is important. Absolutely crucial when you have to decide to do something, because it's easier, obviously. And if you're crazy, your ideas are in some way shared with someone else, it's much easier. You feel a little bit crazy, less crazy. And what can I say? The big challenges I faced over the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, have been all around the problem that young people are often used for some reason from the adults. They use us for many reasons, for youth washing, for other things like that, just because it's cool to call some guys just because he is young, because that's help us to make the panel or any events a little bit more cooler or a little bit good in some ways. That's not how does it could work, maybe. And when I really, in some ways, and I've been really lucky in this, when I found someone who really believed in young, as Ashoka does, as Generazione Changemaker does, obviously, I feel really lucky and happy, because that not always happen. And that's a problem. That's a problem, especially in a country like mine, ours, which makes the youth policy really marginal. Let me make an example. One of the first times I was around talking of the importance of youth policies, and I go around in the small villages, small towns. I had to meet a lot of majority or alderman, youth policy alderman. And one time I remember I go to this village, and youth policy alderman, who was supposed to implement youth policy, didn't know that he was the youth policy alderman. That's just to understand the field where we actually work. And I say this not because everything doesn't work or everything is not how we want it, but just because we have to understand that the biggest challenge we have to face is basically try to subline what is really important. We have to try to tell to everyone that there are some topics that we have to watch, we have to manage in some ways, and we can't say, okay, yeah, that's just because we need a young guys that we call him, but because youth policies in general and the youth question is crucial for our future. Without understanding this, we can't really figure out the big challenges of our nowadays. I mean, really a complex world, which complex questions, which need complex answers. By complex answers, I mean multi-perspective answer, intergenerational answers, that only by a real dialogue we could manage in some ways.
Thank you, Adriano. Who's next? Taoufik? Tatjana?
I can go next. Sorry, you wanted to go start? From all the words you have said, I would add listen. Because all you said is right, and you can make a strategy of all of this. But the first move towards youth is listen. Make sure that their voice is heard, listened, and taken into consideration. So we try to build programs that make sure that their voice is listened, and we tell them, just do like, trendy word is agile. Let's try to solve a problem. You will have the right to fail, you will have the right to redo it again, but it's okay. Because what we prefer is to learn our youth to make maybe small things, but that will last and have a good impact on the ground. Not to build very fantastic things to make your Facebook pictures and things like that. It's okay if you do a small thing and you change the life of your neighbor. It's okay. And you are also a change maker by doing this. So we have also to recognize small things. It's important. We want also to make sure that they don't feel guilty for problems for which they have no reason to be guilty. They are, of course, stakeholders, but we tell them, you will have to manage our problems, the ones that we have created, all of us, and you will have, of course, to manage the problems you're going to create as being on the driver's seat. So you will have to think, actually, two sides, our problems, how to evacuate them, and how to solve your problems. So we make sure that when they have an idea or they want to solve something, we give them the room. We create ideathon weekends or hackathon weekends, and we just start from a small problems. Small, like, okay, we need to solve this problem for a homeless organization. What could you do to solve their problem? And then they feel really engaged in a debate, in a society debate. So this is what we do. One of the challenges we have now, actually, is the intergenerational engagement. It's how to make sure that our youngsters, it's also the matter of the purpose, that at the moment they have reached 30, 35 years old, they are like, okay, in the society, they do not forget the connection with the older generation and then the younger generation. So in our organization, you will find, in just like isolated case, you will find youngsters who were visiting our events when they were 15, looking, okay, what am I going to do in my career? And then they meet IT guys, doctors, whatever. And then when they are 30 years old, they become mentors, not for youngsters, but for 50+ persons who are on the marketplace because their company wants to fire them. And then we do a reverse mentoring. It's the younger who is mentoring the older. Why? Because we need to have this perspective of intergeneration. Don't forget that you're in the middle. You have the youngest coming, but you are also joining the next. So we always have to make sure we do not forget this, and this is important to strengthen the social fabric and the cohesion of our society. And then it comes to make sure that our youngsters are good students, good workers, good entrepreneurs, but also good citizens. Because our society is really weak. Believe me, we are living in a very mad society for the moment. It's not a secret. Of the record, we know we are a lot of problems. And we see them, we place a lot of hope in this younger generation because they reflect on transition, whether it's economical or it's environmental. They take this in their software. And especially in diversity, we rely on this generation also to be evangelists, to spread the words in the minority backgrounds components of our society, that transition is not only for a certain category of people, that in 2030 or in 2050, when we'll have the Green Deal applied, everyone will be concerned. So we look at those youngsters as being fully the solution to be our ambassadors, to spread the word and change the behaviors of the whole society, and especially people coming from the minorities.
Thank you, Taoufik. Yeah. It's worth an applause. Tatjana.
I can't add much more. I mean, I just can applaud you as well. So all of you, but maybe just 2-3 thoughts I have. I think if we don't listen and if we don't give a voice to the youth, then we lose them. I think that is something which I see often even with my kids, where I have more hands-on experience than with my projects, as they're usually still fighting inequity. And it's just now this new project really working with empowerment, the youth, is if you don't support them, you don't listen to them, they might turn away forever. And I think that is really important to see. And I agree with you with mentoring. So I always think mentoring is something so useful for your whole life. So not just for the young ones, even for our age, my age, the old ones already here, is to have different mentors for different perspectives of life. And that's why I found so nice when you said that the 35 years old might be mentors of the old ones. Yes, it's always important. And I told you before, Luca, that in my projects I don't really have the challenges, as we're more dealing with younger ones. But I definitely see that in my kids, it's always give them the support, the advice, the tools which they need for a long time. So my eldest is 22, and I'm sometimes still amazed that he needs it, although he's very independent, far away working. But they still need the support, also if it's just emotionally, and yeah, not maybe sometimes also on hard facts, but very often just the general support, encouragement. Yeah, I think that's all. Couldn't add more.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tatjana. Before giving you last round, the word is listening. Out of the many, just doing some marketing. And from January to June, we hosted this space that is called Changemakers Dialogue. Like this, an intergenerational space where we dialogue with Ashoka Fellow, young changemakers, and changemaker school leaders. We hosted last year, so this year, January to June, and we will launch it in January 2023. And we just released a report on the learnings that we gathered from the conversation and the listening exercise that we have done. So there is a flyer there. You can scan the QR code and you can find the report. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, downloaded for every downloaded tree, isn't it? Something like that. What a rich panel. There are a few things which stick or which I'm going to take away, but I would be also curious to harvesting from your side. What were the key elements you're going to take away? And I'm going to come to you in a second. What you were saying in the end, Tatjana, is not giving a voice to young people means losing them. And at the same time, what you were saying, or both of you, what I've heard, but not giving them all the responsibility. You also mentioned it. If we give them all the responsibility, this also is not fair and not the right way to do. At the same time, we heard about tools like peer-to-peer. We heard about tools mentoring. There are a lot of tools which we can take away, which can help us bringing young people into the cockpit, but at the same time having intergenerational dialogue. Not feeling alone and belonging. This is not in a geographical aspect we've heard. It has a lot to do with a personal journey we're on. What really stuck to me also is suffering and joy is really close. And talking about driving change, it can be painful sometimes, but it can be fun. And the question is, how can we pull that together and support each other as community? Because we heard that community is key. But what even is another key to wherever, to success, is being in exchange. And that's why this is the moment where I would like to ask you, what are you going to take away? Because it's not only about us having this conversation. We were laughing beforehand. We're like, if nobody's going to show up, we're just going to have this conversation here. Thanks for showing up, but we want to involve you in this conversation right now. And let's, I don't know, I already said first row, I have you. Let's ask the last row, maybe. We're going to turn it around. We're going to do reverse, not only mentoring, but questioning. Are there some takeaways? It can be a sentence, Rebecca. Yes,
yeah,
I think.
Because we know Rebecca. So.
Yeah, Rebecca is one of also the spearheads in the field of collaborative interaction with.
A newly elected fellow, so.
Yes. please stand up, Rebecca. I want to see your face also. Yes.
Okay. Thanks for your contribution and that this panel even takes place, because this is not what is usual, right? Normally it's like young people, yeah, they are in school or in university, but we don't have to listen to them. So thanks for this and for your contribution. And what I take with me is that we have to make this experience really joyful, because that's what it's all about. Democracy is not some kind of abstract concept, but we have to make it a joyful experience. Thanks.
Yes, a big joyful applause for Rebecca's comment. I think that's... oh, there's one over here, please. And also for you, we want to hear your voice, so please put the mic to your mouth, because that's how we can hear you.
Yeah, first of all, I also want to thank the panel and that it takes place, because as you just said, it's not very common that we have this intergenerational discourse also in a panel, young people and people, like older people. Sorry. Experienced people. That's much better, thank you. But what I want to say is, so I'm coming from Ukraine and I'm working at a Ukrainian organization, and what you said is really important, because even if we are looking at youth, we are looking at different groups and different groups that have different possibilities and different kinds of access. So not everyone has the same kind of access, and I think it was very important in the panel that you also mentioned that minority groups have different challenges and have additional challenges, especially as we are looking at youth or other demographic groups. Like, for example, young women have different challenges than young men, or disabled young people have different challenges, and so on. And I think it's like what we need to keep in mind is that we're looking into this as an intersectional approach. And thank you very much for mentioning this.
I think this is the moment to come back to the first row, because he's already waiting to
Cornelius.
get
Yeah, I don't know how much you guys can see up there, but I was sitting
Wait,
like this partly. So thank you for this very honest conversation. I think that was the biggest quality of it, sharing like this really inner world. And I came to this session asking myself, okay, how do you do good youth participation? How do you do not tokenize people? And I think my one main takeaway is that there are great methods like peer-to-peer and all other things, but you have to think of this human dimension to youth participation, this dimension of care and joyfulness, which is probably as important or even more important to not tokenize young people on a panel and say, hey, okay, you can sit there and also say your opinion, but actually letting them take over the wheel at some point.
Yes. Anyone else? There's one.
Thank you for everything that you shared, both younger and more experienced ones, because it was really nice to hear about all of your experience. While you were talking, I really identified myself with the notion of, okay, we want to be given responsibility as young people, but we also want adults to guide us and not just to leave us in the middle of nothing, just asking us to do something without giving us the resources to do that. And I would also add another layer of challenge that at least I'm facing also in a small town, such as the ones that Adriano mentioned. It's about the time factor, because since we are young, people ask us to be very dynamic and very proactive in anything that we propose. And sometimes, maybe even because of the system that we live in, people expect from us an immediate impact, an immediate effect. And so you have the feeling that if something moves slowly, it means that nothing is going on, nothing is moving, while it's not the case, because some changes on a local level, in a community, but also on a national scale can take time. And I also think that in this intergenerational dialogue, we shouldn't forget that we can't have everything immediately, but that we really have to build a kind of process that can take time, but that can give a more bigger impact.
Yes. There was one more, a last one? Yeah. And I would encourage, what we're doing right now is an eye-to-eye conversation. I think having a conversation about this, it's not only about experience, it's about having it from human to human. So please, let's have another human share his
hi.
takeaway.
Thank you. Yes, I would think the main takeaway I had, it's also resonate with an idea I had. I was really thankful to Taoufik for what he said. That one of the main points actually that have to be added to the list of how we can solve the problem of including youth is actually just listening. Because I believe the youth dynamic versus the rest of the society is also part of this minority-majority dynamic. It doesn't really matter what the defining quality of the minority is. Is it by gender or by age or by background? And it applies, it's truly an intersectional issue because how we treat the youth is also a reflection of how we treat other groups. Because then age is a factor that defines who is in control, the distribution, who is the majority in the control group, so to say, of our society. And listening is extremely important because, I mean, it's not fair to ask of people who just, came out of school, came out of university, have their whole life ahead of them, to just get everything right and take responsibility for everything. It's like, that would be the same thing as we were to tell another minority group, honestly, we don't care, just go solve your problems. That is not how it should work. Institutions are there to serve the people, all the groups, also the youth. And listening is very important, and thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Well, I suggest we run a last roundtable with a final message to the audience from the speakers. Taoufik?
First, I would like to thank you all for your intervention. Nice words, wise words, and it makes me reflect on many things. Sorry, I'm not going to reply on all the points, but just taking some points here and there about tokenism. First, it goes to the same question you have between majority and minority. I think first, the utmost respect you can have vis-à-vis human persons is to avoid to make them as a token person. Humans deserve respect, dignity, and if you want to invite them, it's because they have a word to say and they have a take to have in the debate, not because you need to have a diversity panel or you need to make sure that, we have our diversity quota and it's okay, we can get the fund from the government. No, that's the utmost bad thing you can do, it's this. Secondly, if you look at the angle of majority-minority, it means that there will be always a struggle. When a boat will draw, majority-minority will just collapse. So we need to shift the paradigm. We have to think as unite. We are a society, there is no mainstream, there is no margin. People are not at the margin. When you are born with everything, whether you are from the mainstream society or the margin. You deserve respect because you are a citizen. And that's it. This is the only thing that matters, is to be respected as a citizen. That's it. For me, when I look at the young generation, I just say to myself, if I had the chance to meet change makers when I was like 30 years ago, probably I would be another person. So I'm thankful for the people who helped me to be the person I am. So I feel this responsibility to also pass the relay and make sure that this younger generation is going to meet the right person at the right place, but still leaving them the complete space for autonomy. And autonomy for me is my conclusion is the key word. Thank you.
Thank you, Taoufik. Tatjana?
Yes, I think for me, working together with the youth comes in my mind from a very early age on, maybe already with kids, to really see each other on the same level and discuss on the same level. and to listen, which I think you said again, but really to listen, not just to listen and really to listen. And I think, I always say, if I go somewhere, you can learn from every person, from every relationship, from every kind of meeting each other. You just have to tickle it out. And I think it's something you can do with small kids, of observing them, with adults, with grandparents. And I think there you see this community here as well, with such a value that you bring together everybody. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Tatjana. Adriano, Catarina?
I had two thoughts, and now they're both gone. No, but about listening, and we've repeated it so many times, but do we actually know how to listen? It is a skill, active listening, empathic listening. It is something that we need to learn. You're not just born with knowing how to listen, especially if no one actually teaches you or shows you how it is done, and not just, I will listen because I have to give a bit of time, and I think it's something that starts at home, but starts at school, starts in so many different environments. And I think the first times that you're fully listened to, in also respected in your opinions and your identity, it's like, oh, this is what listening is about. But I think we need to actually reflect about that, and find tools to teach and learn that. And then the other thought was that you mentioned, Taoufik, telling young people, the young people that you work with, to not feel guilty about things that they didn't cause. And that is, in my head, also linked to when, Tatjana, you talked about privilege. And I think in my personal journey, there was a lot of guilt for many things that I had no, agency on. And then realizing that guilt is not a very good feeling to act. A lot of things can come from anger, a lot of positive things as well if you canalize it in a way that it's constructive. But guilt, I think it kind of makes us apathic, right? Unable to do anything. And what I learned also listening to very interesting and very activated people is that so there's a quote that the outcome of an action comes from is very heavily influenced from the position of the intervener. So it's a very badly paraphrased, but it means that how I feel when I take an action, if it comes from joy, from the willingness to share, from positive things, the outcomes will be radically different than if it comes from more negative things.
Thank you, Catarina. Very last comment.
I completely agree with the things of listening for real. I think our words need to listen more, but listen for real again. And just to listening for real, I think that nowadays we need to understand that another change of paradigm depends on what we are looking for. I told this before. Maybe our generation don't need heroes in an ideological sense. We maybe need examples. We don't need maybe someone to believe in, but we maybe need someone to trust in. The difference is slightly, but there is a difference. And I think the examples come from here, come from these panels, come from this situation, these dialogues, but comes from the projects that everyone takes care and takes to the world. And I think I'm really, really grateful. I'm really, really happy to have the possibility to see a lot of those projects around, because this is a hope. This is the hope that there is a future, there is a good future, and there is a future of listening and good ideas around.
Thank you very much. Please thank all the speakers. And thank you, Stephanie, for hosting us together.
And Luca for his ongoing passion and drive on this topic. Big applause for Luca, please.
Thank you. So the next panel